Have you ever seen the homeless in your community and thought, what can I do to help? I mean, I don't want to get in trouble, but surely there's some way I can help. Well, that's what a gentleman decided to do with a group of friends from church, and they started helping and reaching out and loving people who are homeless in a park in their community. Well, something happened, and we're going to talk about that in the second half of the show, what happened to this individual in his ministry and what we at Pacific Justice Institute are doing to help him continue to show the love of Christ to people who need that love so very much. But in the first half of the show, I want to talk about something that happened at a public university to a group of Christians that I think you're going to be very shocked and surprised to hear about. It's a ministry called InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, and they're actively engaged with people on public universities, sharing the hope of Christ, ministering and discipling. And something happened at one particular university that I know you want to hear from them about. We have with us on the line the senior director to the president of this ministry, InterVarsity. His name is Greg Jao. Greg, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Okay. Now, Greg, first, a little bit about InterVarsity. How many campuses is it on? How big is it?
InterVarsity ministers on about 700 campuses, both public and private here in the United States.
Wow, 700?
1,000 chapters. Yeah.
Okay, and about 1,000 chapters. So you have chapters on the 700 campuses, but you also have them in other places that are nothing to do with universities.
No, we're actually only on college and university campuses, but on a particular campus there may be a group focused on graduate and faculty members. There may be a group focused on students of the fraternity and sorority system or Asian American students, etc. Okay, great. So it's active, it's alive. It's having a big impact, I know, on a lot of people in these public colleges and private colleges and universities. So what exactly do you do that is impacting? I mean, what do you do? I could second guess for the audience, but I won't do that. I'll save some time. InterVarsity loves helping Christian students on campus live missionally by studying Scripture deeply, engaging their friends with the gospel, and then being a witnessing community on campus. We want the university to engage intellectually, spiritually, and practically with the demands and invitations of the gospel. So students will do everything from traditional evangelistic activities to community service events, raise issues ranging from sex trafficking and race issues on campus to the necessity of forgiveness and reconciliation. And as we do so, we hope every college student, every faculty member has an opportunity to hear the gospel from somebody that they know in a powerful, personal, compelling way.
Wow. Sounds like a good group. It sounds like you're doing a great work. Sounds like everyone should appreciate it. But that's not exactly what happened at Wayne State University recently, was it? What happened?
Well, Wayne State University, like a lot of universities, has been intentionally working on being a more welcoming and inclusive campus, which we love. We want more students to feel safe and cared for on campus.
Universities are going out of their way, like never before, to adopt policies to provide a, quote, safe campus. But in reality, we've seen those actually being used to discriminate and be hostile towards people of faith, as in your situation. What happened?
Last spring, the university reviewed the InterVarsity Christian Fellowship chapter constitution and told our students that the requirement that our student leaders be Christians was discriminatory and impermissible. And this past fall, they de-recognized the InterVarsity chapter, which meant we no longer could reserve rooms, for free participate in student activities fairs, or be a viable presence on campus.
Okay. And the reason was because of the fact that you required the leaders of your chapter to be Christians, because you're a Christian organization with a Christian mission and Christian purpose.
Absolutely. So our student leaders are the people who lead our Bible studies, our prayer meetings, our worship times, and they said the requirement is discriminatory. It prevents people who are not Christians from becoming leaders in your organization. And we pointed out a good non-discrimination policy should protect rather than penalize religious groups that want to stay religious.
Right.
But the university responded and said, actually, that kind of limitation did not fit their understanding of non-discrimination.
Yeah. And so they wanted to let clubs like yours be vulnerable to literally be taken over by the atheists. If the atheists wanted to flood the meetings and elect atheist leaders and have atheist purpose, I mean, they'd be able to do that theoretically. If, in fact, your club was forced to open up your leadership and acceptance of leadership with who didn't believe in what your purpose was, what you were about, or your faith in any way, shape, or form. I mean, that's how ludicrous that, quote, non-discrimination policy is. It opens the door for majorities to dominate, to pillage, and to discriminate against those who want the freedom of association, want the ability to come together with like-minded goals and purpose and vision and beliefs. And when we're talking about religious beliefs, I think this is even more important because really we're talking about not only freedom of association, we're also, I think, talking about the free exercise of religion to be able to come together and worship and to share your beliefs and live your beliefs. So that's what they did. They ordered you off campus. What did you do?
Well, obviously, we negotiated with the university and tried to explain to them, if you really care about non-discrimination and welcome, inclusion, and tolerance, you should embrace religious groups that keep their distinct religious identities. We also then equipped our local chapter to rent rooms on campus, and so they spent several $1,000s renting rooms for their Bible studies and other meetings.
Okay, wait right there. You just said they had to spend $2,000 to rent to be able to meet on campus? Did I hear you right?
Yes, ultimately it was more than $2,000, but they had to spend money every week to find a room to meet in. If they were going to do an evangelistic display in a hallway on campus, they had to rent space for that. They were no longer allowed to participate in the student activities fair or other campus programming. Essentially, they were treated like an outside group.
Yeah, it's like an outside merchant coming on campus to market or something. I mean, I have a hard time seeing how they could think that they could get away with that, but obviously they did, and that's what they thrust upon you. So what happened then?
Well, we partnered with the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty and filed a lawsuit against the university earlier or late this winter, and I'm grateful to say the university has temporarily reversed their decision. Our group is back on campus, but we're still pursuing the action with the university so that we can have a longer-lasting, permanent solution. We think a university that cares about its own values will allow religious groups that want to remain distinctly religious to be on campus. In fact, we think religious groups that are distinctly religious make the best contribution to campus.
Oh, absolutely.
And the university shouldn't be involved in telling a religious student organization, this is how you should elect your leaders, and this is what leaders may or may not believe. That, in fact, a government agent like a public university shouldn't be telling a religious organization what it believes and how it should conduct itself.
Right. And in essence, when they say that your leaders don't have to have to believe the way you do and don't have to direct in accordance with those beliefs and orchestrate in accordance with those beliefs, they're in essence doing that. They're basically telling them how to believe. I mean, that's what leadership is all about. If you can't have leadership that have those beliefs, then you really have no organization, at least no organization for those beliefs, but instead for some other beliefs. To me, it's very logical. I think this university, frankly, Greg, would be very wise to adopt really, truly tolerant policies, whereas universities across the country are being noted for their open anti-Christian bias and discrimination and witch hunt, if you will, against Christians, Christian ministries. We see this taking place over and over again, where they're trying to really intimidate Christians. And I know if they want Christians to have their kids go to school there at Wayne State University, they need to make sure it's a safe environment for people of faith and not treating groups and groups of faith like second-class citizens like they're attempting to do. They may not even see it, which is very frustrating. I've noticed that. Has that sort of been your notice? Like some people you talk to, they just don't get it. they just don't, they can't conceive why what they're doing is actually very intolerant and non-inclusive?
I've seen two types of administrators. I spoke to one administrator who said, offline with me, he said, not at Wayne State, but another university, we've gotten ourselves into a crazy place and we don't know how to make ourselves stop. I think part of what's happened is they've hit the intellectual end point of how far a conversation around tolerance and diversity can take you, and we need a new way forward, which helps people acknowledge we have fundamentally different worldviews, different approaches to culture and engagement. How do we find ways to speak respectfully to, of, and with one another toward the common good of building a civic society or building a healthy university while still acknowledging those differences?
Right.
So
right.
I think the vast majority of administrators are sort of blindly following their policy. There should be no discrimination on these grounds. They see religion and say, well, you can't discriminate on religious grounds, and therefore religious groups shouldn't make distinctions based on religion, and aren't thinking through the implications of what they're saying.
Right. Greg, what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. I really believe in InterVarsity. Real quick, where can people go if they want to volunteer to start a chapter in their local college, university somewhere? They say, hey, I want to get involved, like working with young people. Where do they go?
The best place to go would be our website, intervarsity.org, intervarsity.org.
InterVarsity.org. Fantastic. And folks, if you're out there and you have a college or university that's giving you a hard time or your kids a hard time when it comes to their faith, I wanted to feel free also to contact Pacific Justice Institute. We do all of our work without charge. We work in all 50 states, universities, campuses all across the country to make sure that religious freedom flourishes and that people of faith are not treated like second-class citizens, but can live their faith and share their faith freely. So feel free to go to our website, pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org. We also have something very special for you at our website that we're preparing. It's an article about the 10 rights your students have on university campuses. So go to our website, pji.org, and pick up resources like that. We're making that available to you to help you and your children, your grandchildren, be able to flourish on campus and at university campuses across the country. Greg, thank you so much for being with us, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
So my name is Adelmo. I'm 33 years old. I was born and raised in Brazil. Came to America 2 years ago. I've been living here with my wife. Got married 2 years ago. I came to faith in Jesus Christ around 17 years ago. I was living a terrible life in drugs and crime. Praise God, I had people coming and telling me about the faith in Jesus Christ. I understand that when you have something very good, you want to share it with people, especially if it is something that people need. And the gospel is something that people need. November 2015, it was a remarkable date for me. When I was out there preaching, it was in front of a gas station. People didn't like the message and they called the police. The police officer came, and I kept asking him, what law have I broken? What crime have I committed? And he didn't have an answer to my question. He just wanted my ID, and I was trying to make sure that I was going to give him my identification as soon as I understood the crime I was committing. I stood my ground, and he stood his ground, and well, he had the handcuff, so he put the handcuff on me. It didn't make me afraid or anything. I was actually willing to be arrested if that's what it takes for me to be able to have my faith proclaimed. Even the Lord Jesus Christ himself was arrested for preaching the word that he preached. So I don't expect people to be behaving or treating me any better than what they did with the Lord. When I was arrested, I didn't have any legal representation. They said I was going to spend 365 days in jail. pay a fine of $1,000, and I was gonna be deported back to Brazil without my wife. And I trusted God that we were gonna win, and praise God, they never prosecuted it. So they dropped the charges 2 days before the trial.
We at the Pacific Justice Institute are handling more and more cases just like Adamos, where people are being victimized because of intolerance because of their faith. We're committed to defending the fundamental civil rights of individuals, and we're sort of unique in that we work hard across America to make sure that no one is ever left on the side of the road. No case is too small for the Pacific Justice Institute. Folks, if you'd like to support the Pacific Justice Institute on either a one-time or a monthly basis, we have a wonderful gift of appreciation for you. It's a very special book. It's a hardbound book by the author Brian Kilmeade, and the book is called Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates. It's a really interesting story about how our founding fathers dealt with radical Islam back in the early 1800s, and I know you'll really enjoy it. So just go to our website and become a partner of the Pacific Justice Institute. That's how we do what we do, is because of people like you who believe in what we're doing and our ministry. Go to pacificjustice.org, pacificjustice.org, or you can go to pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org, pji.org, and get that free copy of that book, hardbound book by Brian Kilmeade, Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates. I know you'll enjoy it. We have with us here in studio one of our full-time attorneys who heads up our Southern California office, Michael Peffer. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Brad.
Now, Michael, you're involved in this very important matter, humanitarian matter, dealing with someone who wants to minister to homeless people. He's graciously helping homeless people and homeless ministries. And we at Pacific Justice love to do that, right? We love to help people who are support people. And yet he's having a problem in the town of Corona. Tell us more.
Well, this man, he's one of the Lord's servants, and his enthusiasm for reaching out to the poor and needy is infectious, just talking to him. And so he came to us, and what he does is he holds kind of like a family and friends get-together at this park each week. And they bring food. The food is not made at home. It's purchased at one of the local markets.
And who's the they that brings in the food? You say they bring in
this man and his group. He has a group that he meets with.
Okay, gotcha. So they buy the food. They bring it in to serve homeless people there who otherwise may not be able to be eating right and eating healthy.
They serve themselves and others, anyone who wants to join them, and that includes homeless people. So they have their group, and they have food for them, but there's plenty to give out to other people who happen to be in the park, usually homeless people. And
so they share with the homeless.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And in addition to that, he obviously shares a gospel message with them. He has a Bible study that he does. And they also hand out things like bus passes and food cards from Jack in the Box and other kinds of things.
Food cards from Jack in the Box.
Yeah, so they could just give it out and they can go
those.
eat at their. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he's being very generous. He's being very gracious. He's very loving. He's being like Jesus would.
That's right.
People say, what would Jesus do? I could see Jesus doing that.
I totally could.
Okay. So he's in this park. His group of people there. They're fellowshipping. They're sharing with others, both in terms of food needs, as far as spiritual needs. Sounds great. What's the problem?
Well, the problem is that throughout many cities in Southern California and the U.S., there's a so-called homeless problem, and the government entities, on the one hand, they don't really want to do anything about it, but on the other hand, they want to do, push them out, and I get that. I understand that there is a problem with homeless encampments and things like that. That's not the purpose of our discussion, but I understand where they're at. but they choose this guy, our client,
Right.
and they say to him, listen, if you give out one bit of food to a homeless person, if you give out any card, any bus pass, anything, we are going to arrest you. And since this happens on a Friday, you're going to have to spend the entire weekend in jail and wait till the arraignment on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay. First, let me ask you something here. They're not doing this every day. This is not a continual program. This is an occasional prayer. How often do they do this ministry to the homeless?
They actually do this once a week, and they've done it for a number of years with
Okay.
no complaints whatsoever.
Okay, so it's once a week. So someone who's in that park, living there, they're homeless, couldn't get by with what's being provided to them. This is dealing with a once a week, one meal, sharing, loving, and caring. That's not exactly what I would call major equipping and providing a major incentive for people to stay in this park when it's just once a week. And yet law enforcement, I take it's the police are the ones we're talking about.
Correct.
They've made this threat. Is this threat, I mean, how serious is this threat? Is it in writing? Is it, do they say, hey, verbally, we see you next Sunday or next weekend, we're bringing you in, or next Friday, we're bringing you in behind bars, or what?
That's right. It's verbal warning, and they point to signs there that you can't distribute food. There's some health and safety codes which say you can't. They're really designed for people that make food at home and they sell it or whatever. That's prohibited. It's not designed for what's happened here.
Right.
Number one, the food that they're eating, the people, their own guests, are eating as well as allowing homeless people to meet with them. Moreover, they're not handing them cash. They're handing them food cards so that it allows them to get a meal or maybe a bus pass. It allows them to get from one place to another.
Yeah.
So they're ministering to their needs.
Right.
And this is not something where they're out there trying to encourage homelessness. I don't know whether or not these homeless people all live in the park itself. I think they come to it because they know it's there and they know that these people are nice. They have a very, this is not the kind of thing where they can come and drink or do anything that's untoward. They're holding a Bible study there, and our client says, listen, if somebody's causing a disturbance or a problem, they have to leave because we're there to share the gospel and share the love of Christ.
Right. And these homeless, once again, are not living in the park then.
That's right.
So they visit the park, they engage, they move on. Or they go back to where they're residing, wherever that may be.
Right.
I think this is really a shame because Corona, I mean, that's a great town.
Yes, it is.
I have friends living in Corona. I've guest preached at least a couple of churches there in Corona. It's a wonderful community. It's just that it's a community. The churches, the ministers, the people in government. Work together cooperatively in great ways. So it's really disturbing to hear this is taking place. What are we at Pacific Justice Institute doing to help this benevolent group trying to reach out and serve the homeless?
Well, as you know, Brad, we look at this. There's two legal aspects here. One is free speech. A public park is a quintessential area for free speech. And from time immemorial, it's a public forum. So there's the speech aspect of this. And maybe some people don't know, but handing out cards and things like that, gift cards, that's free speech. That is considered speech.
That is actually considered speech. So speech isn't just talking or handing out literature, it's also giving gifts to people?
Right, it's expression. So this is their way this is an expression that they have, and that's covered under the First Amendment.
And they are expressing the love of Jesus.
That's right.
Clearly.
Which goes to the second part of the analysis, is that this is also a religious freedom. These people are doing what Jesus did and what Jesus commanded all of his followers to do. So this is a two-pronged approach. And what we're doing right now, this is a very recent case for us, is we're preparing a letter designed to go to the city council. And we hope that the city council will step up to the plate and say, you know what, we don't need these heavy-handed tactics for something as benign as what these folks are doing.
Yeah. And I totally get restrictions on people selling foods and stuff that has not, it could have problems with it. It hasn't gone through, regular restrictions and to make sure it's healthy and safe. I understand that. I understand some of the concerns regarding homeless management and not wanting to provide an incentive for people to be permanently tenting in a place that really isn't geared for that and have the resources for that. I can understand that too.
Right.
But those concerns aren't concerns that we're really dealing with here.
That's right.
And so
That's right.
I have a hard time seeing the city of Corona not doing the right thing, not being reasonable. But if for some strange reason we're surprised at Pacific Justice Institute, and sometimes we are,
Right.
I know I have been very shocked and surprised sometimes how city governments go the wrong way. We're ready to step up, aren't we?
We step up, and Brad, as you and I have said often, we're not all about let's just file a lawsuit. We want to work with these government entities. There's a lot of concerns involved here. But if need be, if someone's rights are being violated, if someone's speech rights are being violated, or their religious exercise rights are being violated, sometimes we've got to step in and we've got to file a lawsuit. And we obviously don't want to do that because it's much better if the entities decide, you know what, this is unnecessary, what's happening here. And we have hopes that they will do that.
Right. I think a lot of people out there are sort of really miffed when they see such egregious government overreaching, mandating, dictating control of people who are homeless for a number of reasons. Now, on the flip side, we can't overreact and start limiting ministries that are doing good things to reach out, to change lives, change hearts. A lot of these people are homeless. They have different needs, but a lot of them, they need Jesus.
That's right.
They need hope. They're depressed. They see no hope. They see no future. And Christ gives hope and a future, and we can't keep that from these people, who many of whom need that, and that's why they're homeless. It's a whole other topic to talk about all the reasons why people are homeless, from addiction to all kinds of reasons. But the bottom line is, we can't ignore the homeless, and we can't ignore those who are trying to help the homeless. That is what we're doing at Pacific Justice Institute is reaching out and helping those, as we've helped many other homeless ministries in the past. And I think you're doing a great job, Michael. Any last words?
I just have a quick word. In a society that's often fractured, we can't outlaw kindness. And that's all these people are trying to do. They're being kind to somebody who's in need. They're not there to analyze why they're where they're at. They're just being kind to someone who's hungry. And that should be encouraged and not threatened.
I agree. Very good. Michael, keep up the great work. So, folks, there you have it. It's our God-given freedoms we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus with Pacific Justice Institute. Have a great weekend.